They do other things. How do they steal it, you may ask? One of the ways they steal it is through telecommunications. They are trying to embed themselves in our telecommunications system. And here's how. They know, for example, that the U.S. government or a defense contractor are not going to buy a ZTE phone, but they have a solution for that. And the solution is they sell the ZTE phone, the exact same phone with the exact same components inside of it, the things they can turn on and off to listen to us or take emails or documents or whatever they need. They sell the exact same phone to an American telecommunications provider. The American telecommunications provider puts their sticker on it, so you think you're buying not a ZTE phone, but a phone that belongs to an American company, and they sell it. It's called white labeling. You sell the same, or a router. Huawei has a router. The Department of Defense or the government, we're not going to put a Huawei router in a sensitive place. That's fine. They'll just sell it to an American company. That company will take off Huawei and put on their sticker, and you've got a router controlled by a Chinese company who is beholden to Chinese intelligence. Even if they wanted to not cooperate, they don't have a choice. And when they tell them, we want you to go into that router and we want you to get the secrets of this company or the secrets of the U.S. government, not only do they have to do it, they will do it, especially if it's in telecommunication. That's happening right now. They embed themselves in our telecommunications system that way through white labeling. The other thing they do is they use their American subcontracting unit. So again, they know that no one's going to hire them to build a military base and put the wire in it. You hire an American company. That's the prime contractor. They come in as a subcontractor to the prime contractor, and they're the ones doing the work. We think we hired an American company, but the work's being done by a subcontractor controlled by ZTE or Huawei or any of these other companies. That's another way that they do it. And I'm telling you guys, we are going to wake up one day and realize that in our own country, embedded in our telecommunications systems, in our cable, in our routers, in our internet, are a bunch of component pieces that not only leave vulnerable our Department of Defense, but our business community to what? To stealing corporate secrets and commercial secrets that allow them to take the research America has done and use it as their starting point free of cost. This is not fantastic. This is why people here are so fired up about ZTE. This is not a game. Somebody just sent me an article a few minutes ago, I don't know which one of these publications it was, talking about me and taking on the president on ZTE. This is not a political game. Nothing to do with that. This is not about politics. Do we not understand where we are headed? You have a country that is actively saying, we are going to displace you. We are going to be the most powerful country in the world, and we are going to do that at your expense. And we're out here talking about all kinds of other crazy stuff, or political reporters cover this through the political lens. This is not a game. You know why China wins these negotiations? Because they don't play these games. They know what this is about. They have a 10-year plan, 20-year plan, 50-year plan. We can't even think 48 hours ahead. And everything here is about a political thing. It's not a game, guys. Whether you want to believe it or not, every single one of us was elected. We've participated in politics. But I think most of us, if not all of us here, do not want to live in a world in 10, 15, 20 years on our watch where some other country now dominates the world at our expense. We now work for them. We now are beholden to them for everything from medicines to technologies. And we were here when it happened. And we didn't do anything about it because we were loyal to our party or because we were too busy, focused on, well, you guys, just turn on the news when we have this massive threat before us. This is the stuff historians write about, by the way. 100 years from now, if this happens, we'll all look like fools. Because if you're just watching this on an hour-by-hour basis, it's not a big story. But 100 years from now, when someone writes the history of the 21st century, and we let this happen, they're going to write about us. And they're going to say that we were fiddling while Rome was burning, that we were allowing the Chinese to take over the world at our expense and displace us because we were too busy doing all kinds of other things. This also, by the way, is not just about business. You turn on some of the networks that cover the stock market, and they cover this like a casino. Oh, the trade thing is doing better today, so the stocks are up, or the stocks are down. This is not just, forget about that for a moment. You can make all the profits you want over the next 3 to 6 months. I promise you, and then if this continues, in 10 or 15 years, you won't be watching the U.S. stock market, you'll be watching the Chinese markets. And they will be determining whether our companies survive. It'll be us. It'll be us on the outside looking in. And then Americans are going to wonder, why do we no longer invent great things? Why do we now have to do whatever China wants in the world in order to get the medicines we need to cure my mom or my dad's Alzheimer's? And the answer will be because when they were displacing us, your policymakers were too busy arguing with each other and playing dumb, ridiculous games on a regular basis. Meanwhile, China was focused like a laser with a plan, and they executed on it. This is not a game. I can think of no more significant issue from the perspective of history than what is happening now. And do not misunderstand me. I do not come here to say that I want to be unnecessarily aggressive with China or that I want there to be a confrontation. China is going to be a rich and a powerful country. And we have no problem with that. We can't have any problem with that. But there has to be a balance. It cannot be a China that is rich and powerful and an America that is weak and not prosperous. Because those imbalances are what create wars. Those imbalances are what create misery. Those imbalances are what destabilize the planet. That can't be. We need to recalibrate this relationship. It needs to be rebalanced on the trade side. It needs to be protective on our national security side. It needs to be equalized. And if it is, China can still be very successful. They're going to invent things. They're going to create jobs. They're going to become more prosperous. And that is fine. We've been doing that for 100 years. Every person in this gallery, sitting in the gallery, every person here in the well of the Senate on the floor, everyone you know has products on them, a phone, a belt, made in another country. The issue is not that other countries make things and we don't. It's not about us dominating everything. It's about balance. And this is not balanced. This is headed to a dramatic imbalance. And the imbalance used to be they made cheap things and sent it back to us so we had lower prices. That's what's happened for the last 30 years. They made cheaper T-shirts, they assembled the phones cheaper, and they shipped it back to the United States, leading to lower prices. That's not the imbalance I'm talking about. The imbalance we're headed to is they control state-of-the-art artificial intelligence. They control the state-of-the-art quantum computing, which means that nothing can be encrypted anymore, which means there are no such things as secure cars left. The President of the United States one day will not be able to talk to his national security officials anywhere in the world without the Chinese hearing it, because no matter what encryption you put in, they'll break it with a quantum computer. That's the imbalance I'm talking about. The imbalance I'm talking about is one day we'll have a dispute with China on something on national security somewhere in the world, and they will threaten to cut off our supply of biomedicines. In essence, threaten the lives of Americans not getting medicine unless we cave to their desires. That's the imbalance I'm talking about. The imbalance I'm talking about is one where they dominate aerospace, where they are the nation that controls satellites and satellite communication. They are the nation that controls 5G. We're headed towards autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles will depend on 5G technology. And China will dominate the world in 5G, and we will depend on it. So we're going to build a fleet of autonomous trucks and autonomous cars, and none of them will work if the Chinese decide to shut it down because they dominate that field. That's the imbalance I'm talking about. And if this all sounds fantastic, apocalyptic, look it up. Research it. And I promise you, you will not find a single person versed on this topic that would disagree with what I'm saying. This is the threat that we face, and we are not facing it squarely. So I would advise those who cover this issue to stop covering it as a political issue. There are some things so important to this country that I don't care what the politics of it are, and most of my colleagues don't either, because these are definitional things that will define the 21st century. I would advise us not to cover this as a purely economic issue, because there is a way to grow the trade gap in the short term. We can sell them a lot more of the things China is willing to buy anyway. They don't intend to lead the world in those things in exchange for them dominating us in the long run. Get rid of the short-term thinking and start thinking our competitor has a 50, 100, 20, and 5-year plans. And we don't even know what we're going to be talking about next week. It is time to wake up to this threat, because we have two ways forward. There can be a balanced relationship between two great powers, leading to a world that is stable and secure and prosperity, or we can have an imbalanced world in which a rising power in China does so at the direct expense of a falling status quo power in the United States, and that instability will lead to conflict and a way of life for Americans that we will find unacceptable. And then it will be too late. And then we will have to explain, maybe to our children, and most certainly to our grandchildren, why the America we grew up in led the world in all the great innovations and all the great ideas and provided prosperity to millions of people here and around the world, and the America they get to grow up in is a second-tier power, while China dominates everything that matters. And if you think that that's just a way, that's not a big deal, one of the reasons why democracy has spread across the planet is because the world's most powerful country was a democracy. If the world's most powerful country is a dictatorship, a country that has no respect for privacy, a country that has no respect for free speech, a country that has no respect for religious liberty of its own people, a country that has no regard for human rights anywhere in the world, if that's the most dominant nation on earth, what do you think the world's going to look like in 20 or 30 years? It's not going to be a better place. Democracy is morally superior to autocratic regimes. We should not be afraid to say that. And if for no other reason, if you want to put aside economics for a moment and confront it from that angle, we cannot allow an autocratic dictatorship to dominate the global economy and global technology by stealing from us at the expense of the democratic order in the world. Democracies are morally superior to dictatorships. And if we allow China to cheat and steal their way into dominance, there will be more dictatorships and less democracies on this planet. And we will all pay a price for that. So I urge everyone to take this issue seriously. And I urge the President to listen carefully to those in his own administration who understand this threat holistically for what it is. And I urge them to move in a direction that recalibrates the structure of our relationship with China economically, and that does not allow not just ZTE, but numerous other telecom companies from continuing to grow and spy at our expense. That is what I encourage them to do. That is the right thing to do for the future of this country, not some short-term deal that makes us feel good and potentially gets you a positive headline in the short term, but which historians will condemn as the beginning of the end of America's place in the world as its most influential nation.